Hello. Today I will introduce to you 9 migrations that seem very ordinary in nature, but behind each of these movements is an extremely harsh story about survival. Simply put, these are all journeys that at first glance you would think that, well, animals just move around. But in reality, as we go further, the level of spectacularity and the harshness of each migration will increase significantly. Let's start right away with the first migration, which is the reindeer. Put simply, this is a migration that looks very beautiful, but actually, it is also extremely arduous. Every year at the end of winter, the Sami people, an indigenous group living in the region of Scandinavia, begin to lead their tens of thousands of reindeer moving from Norway to Finland. The reason is quite understandable. The reindeer need to find new food and avoid the harsh cold in the Arctic. In a typical migration season, the number of reindeer can reach up to 50,000, and every day they travel about 70 kilometers, lasting for nearly 2 months. In total, the entire journey can be up to 5,000 kilometers long. Just hearing about it makes you feel faint. Returning to the Sami people, they are inhabitants living in the north of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and also the Kola Peninsula of Russia. Their lives are mainly associated with coastal fishing, hunting, and especially reindeer herding. This means a nomadic lifestyle. Wherever the reindeer go, they go. And to them, reindeer are an extremely valuable asset. Reindeer meat generally looks a bit like venison, but it's softer, more fragrant, and sweeter. The Sami people often dry it, salt it, or smoke it for preservation, in a true traditional cold region style. And this is the reason why every late winter, you will see a whole river of pure white reindeer moving amidst the snow and ice. It is indeed beautiful, but behind it is an extremely arduous journey. And after talking about a migration on land, now we will move on to another species, but one that lives entirely in the ocean: humpback whales. In the animal kingdom, this is a species that holds the record for the longest migration. In the summer, humpback whales spend almost their entire time foraging in the waters near the Arctic, where food sources are extremely abundant. But when winter comes, they swim continuously all the way down to the warm waters in the tropics to give birth and raise their young. The total distance they travel each year can reach up to 22,000 kilometers, which is much further than the reindeer herd earlier. The reason humpback whales can swim so far is thanks to their extremely special body structure, especially their tail fin. It works like a giant engine. With every flap of the tail, it pushes the entire body weighing tens of tons forward a very great distance. But there is one thing that until now, no one has been able to answer clearly, which is why these migrations only take place within fixed latitudes, from the Arctic down to the tropics, and then swimming back up along the exact same path. No one knows the exact reason, but it seems that the whales only travel this far to find food and ensure safety during reproduction. And so, if the reindeer is a long-distance warrior on land, then the humpback whale is truly the long-distance king of the ocean. And after talking about a species that travels far out in the ocean like the humpback whale, now we will move on to another species that also lives underwater, but its story is completely the opposite: salmon. This is a species with an incredibly impressive migration, with a distance that can reach up to 3,800 kilometers. The life cycle of salmon begins in freshwater rivers, where they are born. After that, they will swim out to the sea, living in saltwater for a few years. But the most special thing is that, at a certain point in time, they will swim all the way back to the exact same river where they were born to lay eggs. And the fascinating part here is that salmon navigate by smell. Each one remembers the scent of its home river very clearly. So while they swim across the ocean to return, the closer they get, the stronger that familiar scent becomes, helping them find the right path almost entirely by instinct. But this upstream journey is not easy at all. Salmon eat almost nothing during the entire process of swimming against the strong currents, crossing waterfalls, and leaping over obstacles, all just to return to the exact place they were born. And precisely because of this, after the salmon finish laying eggs, most of them will be exhausted and rest there forever, right at the place where their life cycle began. Meanwhile, the eggs hatch into baby salmon, and then sometime later, they will repeat the exact same spectacular journey as their parents. The annual migration of salmon is also an event that is extremely important for grizzly bears, North American bald eagles, and gray wolves, because this is the time when they can easily catch salmon to have highly nutritious meals. And after talking about a species that has to swim upstream for thousands of kilometers, like the salmon, now we will move on to a migration on land. But its grand scale is second to none: red crabs. This is an extremely massive migration in nature, with about 65 million red crabs simultaneously crawling to the sea. And the amazing thing is that this entire journey only takes place over 5 days, traveling around 8 kilometers. But looking at the numbers, it literally seems like the entire ground is moving. As the rainy season approaches and the tide begins to rise, the red crabs will crawl out of their deep burrows in the forest and then crawl swarm by swarm, heading straight for the sea. This journey usually begins in October or November each year, with the main purpose being reproduction. But in order for the red crab eggs to hatch into baby crabs, they have to go through an extremely harsh stage in the seawater. Only when they overcome this step will the baby crabs start crawling back to the forest on their own, almost repeating their parents' journey, but in a mini version. Currently, the number of red crabs on Christmas Island is estimated to be around 120 million, a gigantic number when compared to the 1,600 residents living on the island. But their existence is being heavily threatened. Red crabs can easily die of dehydration when forced to pass through areas with little forest cover. In addition, every migration season, thousands of crabs are crushed by vehicles as they crawl across the roads. Therefore, to minimize the number of crabs killed, people have erected plastic fences, built overpasses for the crabs, and even banned vehicles on many road sections during the crab migration season to keep the whole swarm safe. After talking about a species that moves in a way that turns the whole island bright red like the red crabs, now we will move on to a migration in the sky, the monarch butterfly. This is a very famous butterfly species in North America, and every year around August, billions of monarch butterflies will begin a migration journey that must be called terrifyingly long. From North America flying all the way down to California and Mexico, and then in the summer flying back up to Canada. Seeing these butterflies with their orange wings standing out so brightly, flying in clusters in the sky, looks exactly like glowing clouds. Sometimes they cover entirely the pine trees or any tree trunk they encounter on their way, creating a scene that is incredibly beautiful. Their total travel distance can reach up to 4,800 kilometers, lasting for many months. And especially, it takes up to 3 or 4 generations of butterflies to completely finish the entire trip. That means some butterflies are born just to fly a segment of the journey, and then the next generation flies the next. Scientists say that monarch butterflies have the ability to sense the Earth's magnetic field, so they know exactly which direction they must fly, just like having a compass inside. But in recent years, the number of monarch butterflies has been decreasing significantly. The reason is due to climate change and farmers using pesticides and herbicides which unintentionally kill the larvae and their food source. Therefore, in Mexico, the government has had to plant many more types of flowers with different colors to attract and protect monarch butterflies. At the same time, they also issued a ban on hunting this butterfly species to keep the whole swarm safe during each migration season. After talking about a species that has to fly thousands of kilometers in the sky, like the monarch butterfly, now we will move on to an even more intense migration, the globe skimmer dragonfly. This is a migration considered the largest and longest in the insect world, with a total distance that can reach up to 17,000 kilometers, meaning it's even further than the monarch butterfly and several times the journey of some bird species. In 2009, scientists newly discovered that the globe skimmer dragonfly has a very epic migration route. They start from India, then fly straight across the Indian Ocean to South Africa, and then finally fly back to India, forming a complete cycle. And actually, in the world, there are about 5,200 different species of dragonflies, but among them, only about 50 species carry out such long migrations, usually flying south in the winter to escape the cold and find a more favorable environment. Overall, this is a very impressive journey because globe skimmer dragonflies have a tiny size, yet they can still fly a distance so long that many bird species cannot achieve. And after talking about a tiny insect species that flies further than birds, like the globe skimmer dragonfly, now we will move on to a species that absolutely belongs to the giant team of the ocean, the leatherback turtle. The leatherback turtle is the largest sea turtle species in the world, and you can tell right away just by looking at them because they do not have a hard shell like typical sea turtle species. Instead, their entire back is covered by a layer of smooth skin and flesh, looking quite strange, but that is exactly what helps them adapt to swim far. Leatherback turtles live almost everywhere in the world, but they are mainly concentrated in 3 large populations: Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and Indian Ocean. And their favorite food is jellyfish. So, even if unintentionally, leatherback turtles play a role like a natural jellyfish control system, because without them, the number of jellyfish could increase very quickly. But the problem is, when food sources become scarce, leatherback turtles have to begin long journeys of tens of thousands of kilometers to find areas with more jellyfish. And that distance is extremely terrifying. In 2008, scientists attached tracking devices to a leatherback turtle, and they recorded that it swam from Indonesia all the way to the west coast of the United States and then swam back to Indonesia. In total, this journey was about 20,000 kilometers long, and that turtle took 647 days to complete the trip. Ultimately, this is considered the longest migration distance ever recorded for a reptile species, and it shows that leatherback turtles are truly the long-distance athletes of the ocean. Next, we will return to land with the most epic migration of land mammals, the wildebeest. Around July and August every year, there will be about 1.2 million wildebeests starting to move across the Serengeti ecosystem and the Mara River of Kenya. The total distance they have to travel reaches 2,800 kilometers. But the biggest challenge lies at the Mara River. To reach the green grasslands on the other side, they must risk their lives crossing a river full of traps, from strong currents to crocodiles. And that's not to mention trampling over each other because it's too crowded. The special thing is that wildebeests never migrate alone. Every year, this journey has the participation of millions of other animals. Zebras, gazelles, African antelopes, and right behind them is a whole group of predators. Lions, cheetahs, and especially the Mara region crocodiles. It is exactly the scene of crowding, hesitating, and then suddenly rushing into the river of hundreds of thousands of animals that creates one of the most spectacular moments in the world. But not all of them can make it across. On average, each year there are about 6,200 wildebeests that drown in the Kenya region, equivalent to 1,100 tons of biomass poured into the Mara River ecosystem. And it is this very source of biomass that continues to feed countless other species. All in all, this is a journey that is both fierce and absolutely beautiful in the wild nature. And finally, to close this list, we will come to a tiny species, but one that holds the record for the most massive migration on the entire planet, the Arctic tern. Even though its weight is only about 110 grams, this is the species with the longest migration distance in the world. Every year, around September, they start leaving the Arctic, flying straight down to Antarctica, and then flying back to the Arctic when summer returns. And this total distance is up to 71,000 kilometers long. Because of that very journey, the Arctic tern sees daylight more than any other creature on Earth, because they experience 2 summers every year, one in the Arctic and one in Antarctica. On average, an Arctic tern can live for about 35 years. So if we include its entire life cycle, the total distance it can fly can reach up to 2.4 million kilometers, equivalent to 3 trips from the Earth to the Moon and back. In short, their size is tiny, but the migration journey of the Arctic tern is truly at the top of the chart in the animal kingdom. And those are the most impressive and spectacular migrations in the world that we have just gone through in this video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the newest content. Thank you guys for watching the whole video. And for now, goodbye.